As we take a step closer to opening day, two Cubs reportedly have not been approached about an extension that'll be free agents at the end of the year. Your thoughts on Ian Happ or Seiya Suzuki? And would you extend one or both of those guys? Cade Horton has showed up to camp. He's looking solid. Some of you guys commenting about Nick Castellanos. Should the Cubs have gotten him or not? And we'll get into that, including some spring training broadcasting news and the Cubs designating a guy for assignment on his birthday that we just talked about. Yeah. Weird stuff, right? All right. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, hit the bell. Thank you for being here. And appreciate all of you guys that hung out with us for Beer Money. That's Jody Davis's new show, Cubs Hall of Famer, on the channel now. Hey, look at us. We got a Hall of Famer on here. If you haven't seen the show yet, make sure that you check it out. He's awesome guy. He's been a friend for a long time. So it'll be a lot of fun talking with him on a weekly basis. All right. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Let's go. All right, guys, great to talk to you. Mick Gillespie, Cubs Baseball Channel. Right away, the Chicago Sun-Times reporting that the Cubs have not extended an offer to Ian Happ or Seiya Suzuki for next season. So that's your left fielder, and that's your right fielder. And what do you guys think about that? I'm not surprised. I mean, right now, if you're the Cubs, the guy that you really want to sign that's a free agent next year is Nico Horner. You know, you'd love to get him signed. And if you can't sign him, then obviously Matt Shaw's the guy most likely to take that spot, right? But I haven't heard a lot of buzz about Ian Happ or Seiya Suzuki, partly because the Cubs haven't been linked to trades. And that's because they have no trade clauses. So you're not going to be able to trade those guys. Ian Happ has become a perennial Gold Glover in left field. He is a switch hitter. He obviously would, I think he wants to finish his career as a Cub. And then Seiya Suzuki, you know, we've seen Seiya as one of the best players in the game. And then he gets into these slumps, and then he gets out of the slumps. He was one of the best Cubs in the playoffs last year. Defensively, we thought he'd be better than he was. And he went to the DH spot, and they put him back out in the outfield. He's pretty good. So I hope that that's what we're getting from these guys. I just don't think that the Cubs are going to extend anyone until, I don't know, maybe after the season. See what the market looks like. I think the other part of it, too, is they want to figure out what this season looks like for these guys. You know, when you're making the determination of giving someone a contract extension, you just want to know how healthy they are, where they fit in, what you have in the organization that could take that spot, you know, who else could be out there. So I'm definitely leaning towards Ian Happ getting an extension just because I think he would take a deal to stay. He just seems like someone that would love to be in a Cubs uniform his entire career. I think that motivation helps. He does the podcast. He's the, you know, kind of the elder statesman of this team. He's come up through the organization, and I could see him sticking around if the Cubs wanted to pay him, you know. And I don't know what the market would be for Ian Happ. I would think that the teams in the division that he beats up on would love to sign or see him get out of Chicago. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about, and then let me hit Seiya Suzuki. Seiya, I don't know. I could see them extending him if he had a good season. If he's inconsistent like he was last year, then I think it would kind of be like this. I don't know. And then what else is out there that they would want to go after? I mean, I don't see a whole lot of options in the organization, but you know, right field, it's normally a power spot where you're getting a lot of production, and I'm sure that that's kind of what they're hoping that they get out of that spot. So, all right, second thing, and this comes from Marquee, little clip here. Cade Horton throwing 96, 98 this spring. I know, like, it's one pitch. I just love watching these guys when they are kind of on the comeback trail. He was injured last season. I don't know that it was an injury that would have kept him out had it the playoffs not been there. I think he would have been able to come back last season. But This is a guy who, if the Cubs are able to keep him healthy, could be a big part of this organization for a long time to come. And, some of you guys have gotten into this. What if the Cubs went with a 6-man rotation? It takes one extra guy out of the bullpen. But health-wise, maybe you do that just because it's one less day that, you're giving guys a lot less starts, and they're getting an extra day to heal. I know there was a time and day where there was a 4-man rotation. Yeah. Like back in the day. But now that you're trying to have your pitchers throw as hard as they humanly can on every pitch, it's taxing on the body. So that's a subject that I want to get into on another show, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, or at least go to a 6-man rotation when the schedule hits one of those points and you're not getting a lot of off days. And then all of a sudden you mix in that 6th guy because you want to keep your pitchers fresh, right? And I think the Cubs have the depth right now to easily do that. Now, I'm not counting Justin Steele in, but, Cade Horton and Edward Cabrera, Jameson Tyone, Shota Imanaga, Matthew Boyd. I mean, that's 5. Colin Ray, 6. Javier Assad, 7. I mean, you could do that. And then eventually Justin Steele. So they didn't get Zach Gallen. I still could see them making a move. Like I said on yesterday's show, I think the Cubs tried really hard to make a Zach Gallen deal happen, and it just wasn't possible. The price was probably too high for them because of all of the variants, other than even just the $22 million. We already kind of got into that. Now, what I do think is that you guys need to join AveD, Mick Nation. So we got Connor out on the streets right now trying to figure out who wants some swag. We're going to get that swag to you. Comment, pick games, all of that stuff right there with our Web3 home. So on yesterday's show, I talked about that the Cubs did not get Nick Castellanos. And some of you guys were like, look, this guy is a clubhouse cancer, and we don't want him and all this stuff. Look, we wanted him, okay? I mean, for the league minimum, you got to have guys that can come in and hit. I mean, you remember when he was a Cub, the guy was a masher. Yeah, I know he's known for being rude to the media and being moody. He hasn't always been the best guy in the clubhouse, but the clubhouse is always better when you're winning. So I disagree with the notion that it was good that the Cubs didn't sign him. I mean, the Padres got him for the league minimum because the Phillies have to pay it all. And there's a reason why the guy is paid $20 million. Like he's a really good player. And it gives you some options if you'd have had him. Now, I don't know what we're going to do with the outfield. Still kind of looking around, but I probably should pop the comments up. It's like, oh, this guy's it's like, look, man, you're not signing up a team of Saints. You're just trying to get one more run than the other team. You got to find guys that can drive in runs, and then you got to find guys that can help you as far as scoring runs. And I think that when you're doing those things, then you're doing the right things. This topic is near and dear to my heart because, as many of you guys know, is for 10 years I teamed up with Len Casper and broadcasted the Cubs spring training games on Cubs.com and MLB.com. And the whole thing was that there were a lot of games that weren't being covered. And I love doing it. And I don't know if I could do it anymore if they asked me to. I mean, it's just my life's busy. But I'll tell you what, when I see that there's 18 games that aren't covered, I'm like looking at my schedule. I'm going, man, I mean, maybe, I got to come out of retirement. We got to get these games on, man. How am I going to know what's going on with the Cubs when you're getting a handful of games on TV and you're getting a handful of games on radio on the Score? And so, but the reason we started the webcast all those years ago was because of this. You're missing out on a big chunk of the games, and diehards like us want to watch or listen. So had a blast doing it too. It was so much fun. Some of those games were long though. I remember doing a game one time where it was like 26-18 was the score. And Len did it on TV. He was on TV. I was on the radio version of it with with Zach from the Score, and the Score books that we were filling out were like crazy. How, just how many actual boxes that you need. I've never had a scorebook like that. Plus, the game went, I think, like 4 hours or something. It was long. But I remember Len Casper busted in, and then in the broadcasting world, you have like stuff you talk about, right? Like you get your tidbits on your players, and then you have stories and stuff that you throw in there. And he's like, I hope hopefully you didn't burn through all your A stuff. It was like B stuff, C stuff. It's the longest game I think I've ever broadcast. But then there's a lot of them that are fun. I mean, some of the great moments when the Cubs were building towards the World Series, there was a game where Javi Baez, Chris Bryant, and Jorge Soler went back to back to back, and it was kind of like when we were getting the first look at the guys that would eventually end the drought, right? So those moments, they don't happen if you don't air them. So, I think this year, spring training wise, there's not a whole lot of huge battles right now, unless some injuries happen. I mean, your infield set. I think you're set behind the plate. In the outfield, you're pretty much playing for maybe like an outfield roster spot. Maybe a utility guy spot. But there's not a whole lot of huge roster battles. Some years you go in and you got like, it's going to be this guy, or this guy, and then if it's this guy, they're going to cut this guy, and. You don't know who how many years did we not know who the third baseman was going to be? That's with Alex Bregman. Those days are over. But anyway, I saw that and I figured I'd bring that up. Now, the Cubs signed former Red Eric Yang to a contract that'd be a minor league contract, be a guy who will try to break in somehow, give you some depth. It's a spot where the Cubs don't have a lot of organizational catching depth. So, the last few years they've gone out and signed guys. I mean, think about Reese McGuire last year. Sign him, end up having some really big hits throughout the year when he was called on, when Miguel Amaya got hurt and you needed somebody, he stepped up and did it. Carson Kelly's kind of solidified himself in my mind as, as maybe your starting catcher, but they're hoping that Amaya comes back and kind of can take that job. But Yang gets signed, and then on the other end of it, really the oddity of this whole thing is I read a story yesterday where somebody wrote an article saying that the Cubs might trade Dansby Swanson to the Braves for a couple of like a pitcher and a catcher, and they mentioned Ben Cowles as someone in the story that could be the like organizational shortstop depth. Little did they know, and me too, to be honest with you, that Cowles was designated for assignment because the Cubs signed Shelby Miller, right? Remember, he's not going to pitch this year, but he's going to pitch next year. So Cowles, who the Cubs got in a trade from the Yankees for Mark Leiter Jr., was with the White Sox, designated for assignment. Cubs put him on the roster, and then he didn't even make it to spring training. So, and he's not going to replace Dansby Swanson. But just for the record, know that I report on the stuff that I read and talk to you guys about. It doesn't necessarily mean that I believe any of that stuff. I just see it, and I'm like, hey, this is definitely worth talking about. All right, final thing on the show. Trevor Bauer versus Ethan Conrad. And a lot of you guys ask me all the time, you're like, why aren't the Cubs interested in Trevor Bauer? And I'm going to tell you that it's just my thought that Bauer's blacklisted. I don't know why. I mean, I know the allegations, but then, he obviously went and sued and won a lot of money off one of those ladies. I don't know the whole story, but I can tell you that Bauer is good enough to pitch in the major leagues, but he's not getting the opportunity. So this is funny, right? So you got Bauer on his Twitter channel with Ethan Conrad. He was the guy the Cubs drafted in the first round last year. And this video is hilarious, right? Bauer's just like serving him up pitches and talking about it. And Conrad's up there, and he's up there with his Cubs hat on and helmet batting, and good to see him take some swings. But I mean, I don't know that Ethan Conrad has seen anything like Trevor Bauer. I mean, a former Cy Young Award winner. And honestly, if he was whatever in the game, he would be one of the best pitchers. But I thought this was cool. I'm one that would look, if he could help us win, I would sign him, you know. But Conrad struck out looking, and that was how his matchup with Trevor Bauer went. You guys get in the comment section. Every time I bring up Trevor Bauer, it brings, some of you love him, some of you hate him. But it brings a lot of responses. It's never just, it's always a lot. So you guys tell me what you think. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Again, get in the comment section. Watch Beer Money. And tell me what you want me to ask Jody Davis. If you got any questions for him, if you got anything you want us to talk about, one of Harry's favorite players, and a guy who is super elated to be in the Cubs Hall of Fame, which I think is super cool. All right. Thank you guys. We'll do it again tomorrow. Go Cubs.